And welcome back. Congressman Mike Rogers is the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee. He's in our Chicago bureau this morning. He is from Michigan, of course. Well, Congressman, you just heard what a very influential Democrat in the House, Chuck Schumer, said. He says that things are in good enough shape right now in Afghanistan when we can make a major withdrawal of our forces from there. Where do you come down on that?
Boy, Bob, I don't know what he's looking at. I must have missed that particular brief. Well, we are in a very, very precarious place in Afghanistan right now. And we can't, what it seems to me is there's a political solution that's trying to find a military component to it versus the other way around. We need to apply a military solution to our problem there and then talk about it to the American public. And I think this administration's weakness is they want to have those successes. I think they truly do want to keep America safe, but they want to do it politically first and then find the military component. We need to flip that around. They need to be able to come to the American people and explain where we are. If we're arguing if it's 2,000 troops or 5,000 troops, we have completely missed the point of what the threat of safe haven is in Afghanistan.
Well, I think he's talking about more than 5,000 troops being drawn out of there. Let's say the president does decide to make a major withdrawal. What do you see happening?
Well, if you do it because that's the solution that we want versus the reality that we find, I think we're gonna find ourselves in trouble. And I think that's what Secretary Gates has been saying. We shouldn't base this on some political calculation. We've got a 30,000 troop surge. This is the spring offensive. This is when the Taliban thinks that they rock us back. The administration's already talking about suing for peace, if you will, with the Taliban, which I just think is a disaster for what our real objectives are. And if our objectives are to mollify political concerns back at home, that's one thing. I think that's a disaster. If it is to actually take Afghanistan off the safe haven list, and remember, this wasn't about Osama bin Laden. It was about Osama bin Laden being able to operate in a safe haven of Afghanistan, and part of that component was the Taliban. We need to make sure that Afghanistan can defend itself when we leave. If we do anything short of that, I think we do a huge disservice, and guess what? We will be back there in the future, and I think that's a serious mistake.
You know, a lot of Americans, I mean, it really knocked their socks off this week when they pick up the New York Times and read that Pakistan, where we have poured billions of dollars into, which is supposed to be our ally in all this, we find out that the Pakistan military has gone out and arrested the people who tipped us off to where Osama bin Laden was hiding in Pakistan. What's going on here, Congressman?
Yeah, well, and first of all, many of those people had absolutely nothing to do with our effort on finding Osama bin Laden, and that is horribly unfortunate. I just returned from Pakistan last week, had some very hard, candid conversations with General Kiani, who's head of the Army, and Pasha, who is head of the intelligence service, both general officers. And I've been going there for 6 years trying to work this relationship to one degree or another. And I have to tell you, Bob, I am more pessimistic coming out of this trip than I have been in the past. Pakistan needs to understand that there is no such thing as a good terrorist. They have played a very dangerous game in the past. They have been helpful to us. They put their military into the tribal areas and have taken 5,000 casualties, taking out Al-Qaeda and Taliban targets for us. They've arrested hundreds over this last decade of Al-Qaeda and Taliban leadership in the settled areas of Pakistan. So they haven't been complete enemies in this. They have been helpful. At the same time, they're playing this very dangerous game of destabilization by having elements of the ISI and the Army sympathetic to the Taliban.
What can we do about
and Al-Qaeda
this?
elements.
I mean, what can we do about this?
Well, one thing, we have to understand who they are. Pakistan today is an army with a country, not a country with an army. And we have to start dealing with them, I think, in that context. We have to lay out some benchmarks. And I have been very reluctant to do this in the past, having Congress lay out the benchmarks. I don't see any other way that we are going to continue a working relationship if we don't lay out some benchmarks for Pakistan. I think the support for there is important. They're a nuclear country. They're one of the few, matter of fact, maybe the only growing nuclear state in the world, which is concerning enough. But they also have this huge terrorism problem within their own country. So they have all of these dynamics. So we have to be there. We're going to have to continue to work with them. They do help us in some ways, but this is incredibly concerning when they continue to have these problems with helping bad guys. The IED factory that was reported in the press is a great example. These arrests around the neighborhood in Abbottabad, very, very concerning. It just sends the wrong message that they've gotten the lesson.
Good. I take your point,
Go ahead,
Congressman. I'm sorry we've run out of time. Thank you so much.